Hello. This is a wood turning lathe. It belongs to a friend of mine, and it's a sort of cheapy one from, you get it from Machine Mart in this country. It's the Clark brand. It's okay. I put it together and it's reasonable. You can get a reasonable job out of it. It's got a few issues. The main problem is that it's flimsy. It's mostly made of sheet metal folded together. What that means is it can flex. So here's one of the few cast bits, but you can see the problem here, because this is all made of sheet, these runners, when I tighten it here, this actually pulls back. And what that means is that even if this centre here is turning true, this centre here is actually turning in a little circle itself. So that's not, this basically is then not concentric to this, which is not great. So why am I going on about this lathe then? Well, basically the lathe's alright, you can do some work with it, but the tools that came with it are rubbish. Here they are. And these are really tragically poor. So I'd say, yeah, the lathe you can do some stuff with, but these tools you can't. They're really awful. They're flimsy, they feel nasty in the hand. This is the main tool, this is the turning gouge, and it's just shocking. There's no depth to this at all, there's no thickness in the metal. It's been ground at a most peculiar angle, and it chatters. It feels all wrong when you're using it. It jiggles about. So in contrast to this mediocre gouge, this is the one that my dad gave me when I was about 8 years old, and it's still going strong now. It's a really good bit of, it's a really nice one. It's not, I don't think it was expensive, I doubt that very much, but it stood the test of time. You can see down there, perhaps, I can get this camera to focus, the difference in thickness between the two. There's just loads more meat on this one. It feels good in the hand, it's not going to move about on you. You know, even the handle is utterly different. There's something to grip on this one. It's got a swell on there, you can choke up on it, you can hold it back here in the palm of your hand. It's just nice to use. And a tool that's nice to use is much more likely to give you the result you're after. So, on to the point of the video then. I'm going to try and make some better versions of these, and I'm going to model them on my set. So personally, if I was buying a lathe to start out with wood turning, rather than buy something new like this for cheaper, I suspect, or similar price at least, you could get something like this thing. So this is really old, this I guess 60s, maybe even 50s. It's a hobbyist lathe, it's nothing special, although it's a lot better quality than that Clark one. So you can see here all of this is cast, but it's also had a lot of thought gone into it as to where it needs to be braced and where it needs to be stiff and strong, and where you can lose a bit of weight, like in the middle of here. So it's got a massive tubular section here as the rail, which is nice and rigid, and this then is always nice and concentric to that. It's more limited, this one, in its gearing. There's a grand total of 2 gears, but yeah, I find that's usable. And you've even got a little sharpening stone here, which is just for touching up really, but for wood turning that's quite handy, just to constantly keep a nice edge on your tools. So yeah, and this is called what we got there, the Minor Coronet Tool Company. A nice bit of British engineering from the olden days when we used to make things, not just consume things. So what I'm going to try and make these out of is something from this box of old files. So I traded, I can't remember what I traded, probably, I think I fixed something for a friend of mine. He gave me this box. He'd got them at a car boot sale for like £2 or something. Really lucky they weren't just thrown away. So all these files are completely dull. So as files, they're an absolute dead loss. But if you're into blacksmithing, just think of what you can do with stuff like this. This is great. I think these three are my candidates. First up, this should be relatively easy. This is a parting tool, and I should be able to form this pretty much just from one of these. Very little work to do to turn that into one of these. And this file, I guarantee you, is better steel than that horrible chisel that I'm replacing. So that's that one sorted. The scraper is next up, and the scraper is very similar. And again, I'll just need to grind in this bevel. Just there. So again, reducing it, but little work other than that to turn this into this. Now the trickier bit is going to be this, the turning gouge. And you see there's actually some shape to this one. I did debate using something like this. I've got a whole bunch of these in there, these half round files, and of course the bottom of that is about right. But I think by the time I try and swage a crease into the top here, these end bits are going to be too thin, and yeah, there's going to be a lot of messing around. So I think I'm better off starting with something flat like this one. So this has about the right thickness, and I'll see if I can make this into one of these. So this is one of those moments where I really need a swage block, and very embarrassingly, being a blacksmith, I don't own a swage block. So a swage block, for those who don't know, is a big lump of cast iron, and it's got loads of creases and shapes cast into it, all sorts of shapes. So little scoops in it, square holes, all kinds of things, and it's basically for forming onto. Yeah, like I said, I don't have one. I've just been too stingy to pay the going rate for them, which seems to be a phenomenal amount of money for what it is. One will turn up one day, I'm sure. So in the absence of an actual proper swage block, I thought I'd go with something like this. The valley of this bit of angle iron I'm going to use to form this bit here. So first things first, I'm going to take these old files, not the nice tools, and anneal them in the forge. So we get those up to about orange, glowing nice and orange, basically until this magnet here doesn't stick to them anymore. Then I'll turn the gas off and let them cool down on the hot bricks. In the meantime, I start thinking about handles. So this is a bit of cherry. Now when cutting uneven wood in the chop saw, there's a real tendency for it to catch at some point because it's not sat evenly against the backstop there. And in fact, the last time I did a load of hawthorn cutting, I destroyed the backstop. This is a new one I made out of really heavy steel. So yeah, it definitely does it. Right, bear in mind as we go through this stage that I'm a blacksmith, if I'm anything. I'm certainly not a wood turner. Although I did do it as a kid, I did it a lot. But that was a long time ago. So I need to work out what that's going to be. So I want the wood at this section to be the internal diameter of the bit of copper pipe that I'm going to use instead of this brass ferrule. That's that bit. That's the widest point. There's the widest point. So layout now. So this front bit is down to size. That should be the fat bit there. That's the thinnest bit there. I've made it a bit longer because I think that will be helpful, and I've tried to keep similar proportions. So you see you've got this nice swell here, and then it cuts down to this bit where the copper pipe will go. Right, and go to speed 2. That's exciting. There's some grooves in it. Like I say, I'm not the best wood turner in the world. We're not the best in the parish, but I'm the best in the room. So I'll have to do right. And yeah, if like me you're not great at wood turning, you can always make up for it by being great at sanding. Yeah, pretty much there. I wasn't going to go this far with the sanding, but while I'm here it's nice to make as good a job as possible. Crikey, that rain's picking up. Okay, we're on to the last one, 500 grit. Over here, that's the files, and these are still warm, but as you can see, handleable. I think to do a bit of sand off the remaining teeth. So this should be nicely annealed now. It should be easy to work. But let's find out. Well, the good news is that stands without too much of a problem there. Looking at the gouge here, I'm wondering about the length of the tang to go in it. If I leave the tang as it is on the old file, so the shoulders go there, that's really not much. So I'm going to put the forge on, put all 3 in there, lengthen out the tangs, and then cut them to whatever length they're intended to be, and take it from there. decided life's too short and I'm going to take it up another notch. Rather than light the coal forge, which is soaking wet at the moment, I'm just going to use the oxypropane tool. Right in the curve. Press it up a bit, but we finally got some movement in it, so progress. Okay, it's back in the forge. I'm going to take it out and stick it in the leg vise and just try and even up the edges a bit. Squeeze it in there. These jaws are reasonably flat. Now it's started to cut from doing it in the jig. The vice can actually do something there, and it's evened it out quite well actually. Right, so let's see how flat it is. Right, so here's the scraper and the parting tool, and I've taken off most of the teeth of the file. I've left a little tiny bit on at the bottom so you can see what it was, and then on this one, this was the one I upset slightly to squeeze it in to get the thickness, and I've left a bit of the pattern in there. I quite like it, and this is only done to 80, but it feels quite nice. I think might well just leave it at that. So these are ready to be hardened. So yeah, very happy with the way this turned out, or so far. The shapes come together nicely, especially considering the awful excuse of a jig that I was using. I'm quite happy with that, and I like the fact you can still see some of the file teeth in there. I think that's quite sweet. Does that show you? Okay, there you go. So I'm going to clean it up with the belt sander. I might put a die grinder down the middle just to true that up a bit, make some of these a little bit straighter. Then I'm going to normalise it, so I'm going to bring it up to red heat and cool down. I'll do that 3 times just in case there probably will be some stresses in there after all that abuse. So that'll sort all that out, relax all the metal as it were. Then once that's done, then I can go for the hardening. The other 2 are good to go, so they'll go for the normalising cycles, and then they'll be ready for hardening as well. There's a bit of a sharp V shape right at the end there, and I'm going to try and clean that up a bit using the die grinder with this. This is the biggest burr I've got, and if I go at it like that, it'll just put more of a circular profile in there, and I think that'll make putting a proper bevel on it easier. And again, much easier to do that now while it's soft. There we go, that's better. And yeah, it's a bit bigger than that one, but I think the shape's just about right. I'm pretty hopeful that'll work. But I can refine the bevel later, that's not important right now. What is important is normalising it and then hardening it. So let's do that. So I'll gently bring those up to red, cool, repeat. And somewhere along the line, when they're warm, I'm going to stamp some letters into them. Right, hardening time. I've got a slight problem. My quenching oil, as you can see, is solid. It's pretty cold in the workshop. And yeah, this is olive oil, or it used to be. It's currently olive wax. There we go. Two sessions we've had in the kitchen oven there, and let's see if this comes up. So hopefully you can see on this is one I sanded this one to use as an indicator, and to me that looks light straw comparing it in the chart in one of my books, which is great because that means that the thermostat in the oven is bang on then, and that's what we're aiming at. So that's about 220 centigrade, or a bit over 400 Fahrenheit. Right, back to the workshop then. So let's clean them up. These two I'm going to leave unhandled, and this one I'm going to do the whole shebang on. So here's the handle. I've just wrapped it up in a disposable glove to protect it a bit. I've got the centre marked because where the lathe was. Of course, the challenge is to get it snug without splitting the wood. I'll put the copper ferrule on first because it won't go over the gouge blade. There it is. It's on there. So what I've done is I've finished the spindle gouge, so that's completely done. And then the scraper and the parting tool, you can see I've done the forging, I've done the grinding, and I've put an edge on them. I haven't done the handles, and the reason for that is I figured that the person I'm giving this to as a first project could make the handles for these. Hopefully she won't just think I've done half a job in the making of the present. Before I wrap these up, I better test them out, make sure they work. Over to the lathe. Here we are then, a bit of firewood from the firewood pile, and I've just used a roughing gouge to take the worst of it off. Let's see if we get anywhere with the new one. It'll certainly help if I put the tool rest somewhere near where I'm working. Okay, here we go. Genuine first ever test. Oh, bloody hell. Well, I call that a raging success. So there you go. Spindle gouge from an old file. Let's check the others. Lovely. Alright, one to go. Super duper. Phew. Well, that's a relief. So I'm not sure what I've proven there, but maybe I've proven you can take an awful long time to make some nice tools out of some old files. But it was a lot of fun to do, it really was. And it's a really, I think, a really nice functional tool at the end of it. Well, all three of them, once they've got the handles on. So, hopefully she'll like them enough to, yeah, turn the handles. There we go. Thanks for watching. Cheers.